Are you ready for Georgia and Kentucky this afternoon as the University of Georgia travels to Kroger Field in Lexington, Kentucky? Easy for me to say. As Georgia seeks to go 11-0 on the season, and Georgia will seek to solidify its hold on the number one ranking, the number one ranking, being ranked number one. There you go in the college football playoffs. We thought we'd pop in here just for a moment before the game will get underway today to kind of get your feelings on how you are feeling about Georgia and Kentucky this afternoon. Now, I got to tell you, some interesting things are going on in college football today. Here's the latest that we have on some scores. Illinois is beating Michigan right now with 4:37 left to go in the game, 17-13. Now, if Illinois beats Michigan, boy, that's going to open the door for the Tennessee Volunteers and a couple of other teams maybe to be in the top four in the college football rankings. Also, TCU did win. They did win. TCU won today, 29-28 over Baylor. And so TCU, the number 4 ranked team in the latest college football rankings, they did win their game today, 29-28. So that Illinois and Michigan game kind of looms very big. Oh, it's fourth quarter now with 5:56 left to go. What did they do? Put time back on the clock? Or, this connection is a little different. Alabama winning today handily over Austin Peay. Kansas State, West Virginia, that's 35-25. So those are, kind of interesting games. And Florida is beating, Vanderbilt beating Florida the last we saw. And I don't see that score here, but Vanderbilt was beating Florida the last we saw, 28-20. But the game we want to focus on, of course, is the University of Georgia and the Kentucky Wildcats. Again, it is in Lexington, Kentucky at Kroger Field. Kentucky losing last week at home to Vanderbilt, snapping the 26-game losing streak in the SEC for the Vanderbilt Commodores. Of course, Vanderbilt seeking to pull another upset today over Florida at home in Nashville. We're keeping an eye on that. But let's talk a little bit in kind of a pregame warm-up. And speaking of warming up, the temperature currently in Lexington, Kentucky is 37 degrees. It is cold in the stands, and winds are whipping up to 20 miles per hour in Lexington, Kentucky. So weather is going to be a factor. Now, no rain is in the forecast. And of course, with those kind of temperatures, if it was raining, it most likely would be more ice than snow or icy snow or something like that. But fortunately, the chances of precipitation, I'll get it out in a minute. Have you ever had one of those days where it seems like nothing has gone right? Well, this is one of those days. Anyway, chances of precipitation remain very low. Rain most likely will not affect the game today, but it's going to be cold. And what is that going to mean? It's going to be a little more difficult to get a grip on the football when you're passing the ball. And so you might see a little more of the rushing attack for Georgia and Kentucky today. And with the wind and with the cold, it's going to make kicking a little dicey as far as field goals are concerned and as far as extra points are concerned. You may not see like field goal attempts beyond 30 yards or something like that with what is going on in Kentucky. Our correspondent on the ground says it is cold. It is cold. And he repeated it one more time. It is cold in Lexington, Kentucky today. So, But of course, the players, they have all of their gear to try to stay warm, and they have the hand warmers and the heaters on the side and that kind of thing. So what do you think about this? Here comes Georgia 10-0 on the season, 7-0 in the SEC. And let's see, we got some guys popping in here. And hey, how you doing, Lori and Scott Stevens? Good to have you with us today. Chris Adams as well. Go Dogs. Now, our projected score was 38-10. Here at Dogs on Demand, we say Georgia's going to win this game 38-10. And we've been pretty good. Usually we're terrible when it comes to trying to project a score. But this year we've been pretty good. So 38-10. Where is Brandon? Brandon Adams, according to Jordan. I have no idea. That's a different bunch. But we like Brandon Adams. He's Brandon is a good guy, and he works with Dog Nation, and he does a great job in what he does as well. We try to compliment those guys as much as we can. Lisa Hall. Yes, you can never have too many Halls in the world. Lisa Hall says go Dogs. Indeed. So let's see. Kentucky is 6-4 overall, 3-4 in the SEC. And so Georgia's already clinched, of course, the Eastern Division Championship in the SEC. And so what Georgia's trying to do is, of course, obviously win today. You want to win. You want to keep that number one spot in the college football rankings. If Georgia wins today, they'll be 8-0 in league play, SEC play, for the second consecutive season. So that's a big deal, and a lot is on the line for Georgia today. Now Kentucky is struggling. Kentucky lost. Kentucky has lost 4 of its last 6 games, and they lost last week to Vanderbilt, surprisingly, at home and at Kroger Field, 24-21. Now the Commodores have kind of picked it up here, and they're giving Florida everything that Florida can handle. So you got Georgia and Kentucky today, and Kentucky is kind of struggling a little bit, but you're on the road in the SEC. Tracy says cold game, need to limit turnovers, and that's absolutely the truth. In games like this, and anytime you play on the road in the SEC, you just say, okay, you always have apprehension when you play on the road even when you play at home, because SEC teams are just tough. And Georgia, very impressive, but, as Kirby Smart says, humility is only a week away. And so I'm sure Georgia's going to be ready. The thing you always fear is turnovers at the beginning of the game. You give Kentucky some hope, you give them some life, and they might make things difficult for the Dogs. Kentucky has a decent defense. And, hey, Miss Elizabeth, how you doing? Indeed, go Dogs. And Vandy is beating the Gators. That's exactly right. Vanderbilt looking very good. I mean, Georgia took them out. What was it, 55-3 or something like that? But since then, Vanderbilt has been playing very well. In fact, Charlie Lee, the head coach at the University of Vanderbilt, says he's going to build Vanderbilt into the best program in the SEC. And he didn't, crack a smile when he said that. He didn't try to laugh as if he was making something up. He was dead serious. So Vanderbilt playing very well today. I've watched some of that game, playing very well today. So Georgia ready to go. Stetson Bennett, of course, had a good game last week against Mississippi State. Georgia beating Mississippi State last week, 45-19. The Wildcat defense is ranked 3rd in the SEC. The Wildcat, Kentucky's defense is not a shabby defense by any means, giving up 317 yards per game to the opposing team's offense, but they did give up 448 yards to Vanderbilt last week, including a last-minute drive by Vanderbilt to secure that win over Kentucky. Now, Will Levis, he's been highly touted as a potential prospect. He had a rough time last week. Levis only threw for 109 yards and did not throw a touchdown pass against Vanderbilt last week. So Will Levis, he's out of the Heisman consideration. He was in the mix there for a while. And he, was talked about as maybe being the top ranked quarterback in the coming out of college this year for the NFL draft, but he's kind of fallen off from that. Kentucky has a very good running back, the best running back probably in the SEC, and Chris Rodriguez Jr. He was suspended 4 games earlier in the season. Never did understand what the suspension was all about. Apparently some academic issue, not anything to do with any kind of misbehavior or anything like that, but maybe, an academic issue. But he since he's come back, he's been very good. He's gained 733 yards since he has come back for Kentucky. So Chris Rodriguez, he's going to get the ball a lot today against that Georgia defense. The Georgia defense, just stellar, continues to be stellar. Jalen Carter and the bunch, on defense. And we're anticipating a very good effort from the Georgia defense for today as well, and the Georgia offense as well. Georgia just needs to get off to a good start. Let's take the drama out of the game immediately, dominate immediately. That's what I always hope and always wish. Sometimes you get your wish, sometimes you don't, and then you have to kind of snuggle around a little bit and say, okay, guys, hang on to it. And you get into the third quarter and the game is still in question. We don't want any of that today. We want Georgia to immediately dominate this game, and let's get all the drama out of the way. Win this game today, go to 11-0 and close out the regular season next week against Georgia Tech. And so, that's what we want. That's what we're looking for anyway. So Georgia has won the last 12 games in this series against Kentucky. And so, Georgia has dominated lately. Kentucky defensive coordinator Brad White had some high praise this week for Stetson Bennett. He compared Stetson Bennett to Tom Brady. This is Kentucky's defensive coordinator, Brad White. He was very impressed with the milkman. He was the mailman. Stetson Bennett was the mailman. Then he signed an NIL deal with the milk producers of the state of Georgia. Did you see the commercial that he was in to promote his connection with the milk producers of the state of Georgia? Stetson is holding this, fake news conference, and he says, well, guys, I've been known as the mailman, and now we're going to change my nickname. I am now I'm no longer the mailman. I'm the milkman. Check out that commercial. It's kind of funny. But anyway, defensive coordinator Brad White, he's very impressed with Stetson Bennett. He compared him to Tom Brady. And Brad White, the defensive coordinator for Kentucky, says that Stetson Bennett is probably the best quarterback the Kentucky Wildcats will see this season. And remember, Kentucky played Tennessee and Hendon Hooker. But according to Brad White, he would take Stetson Bennett over Hendon Hooker. Here's what White had to say about Stetson Bennett. He said, facing Bennett in college is kind of like facing Brady in the NFL in that he has seen so much. He's got so much experience. We've got to try to find a way to give him something he has not seen. And then he added again, he's the best quarterback probably that we will face all year. So that's pretty good. Pretty high praise coming from Kentucky's defensive coordinator, Miss Jean, coming in there. Hello, Chris. Go Dogs. Well, I appreciate that, Miss Jean. We really do. Now, we're going to be here pregame, of course. We'll hang on for a couple of more minutes. And then we're going to be here at halftime. Let's see. Checking out the scores. Illinois still beating Michigan in the fourth quarter. 1 minute and 53 seconds left to go. So if Illinois knocks off Michigan number 3 in the country, in the college football rankings. That's going to knock them out. Of course, that's before Michigan plays Ohio State. Ohio State next Saturday. So, kind of interesting. If Michigan loses, that'll drop them out of the top 4. That will move TCU up to number 3, probably Tennessee into number 4 in the college football rankings if Illinois beats Michigan. And, there's still some time left in that game. That game is being played in Ann Arbor. So, let's see what we got here. We got Thomas, go Dogs. Appreciate it. Yes, sir. Go Dogs. And let's see. We got some other guys coming in here. Always enjoy your show. Well, thank you, Thomas. We appreciate that. Just doing our best. Just doing our best. Let's see. Kansas State beating West Virginia. Again, TCU did win today. Baylor had that game in hand for a while, but TCU wins. So let's just say, that Michigan loses today. We're checking, trying to get an update on the scores. But if Michigan does have the ball and they're driving. But if Michigan were to lose, they're number 3 in the college football rankings. That'll knock them out. TCU would move up number 3. Tennessee would move up to number 4. And that would be kind of interesting. And then next week, if Michigan were to beat Ohio State, which is not out of the realm of possibility, then it could be that you would have, then what? You would have, if that happened, that scenario happened, you would have Georgia, TCU, Tennessee, and Clemson maybe, or LSU, or even Alabama, believe it or not. College football is fun this time of the year. So we're going to get out of here. We're getting ready for the kickoff. Now, we're not on site in Lexington, Kentucky. We're here in our studios, and we're going to be keeping an eye on things. And I'm trying to keep an eye on some of our scores. And let's check the 47 seconds left in the Michigan-Illinois game. 47 seconds left. And Illinois is beating Michigan 17-16. So interesting. All right, guys, let's go Dogs. We're fixing to go up to Lexington, Kentucky. We'll be watching it on CBS. And so let's go. And we'll be back here with you at halftime to get your opinion on what's happening with the University of Georgia. Miss Amber, how you doing? Go get them Dogs, indeed. And we hope that they do. All right, guys, join us again at halftime. We'll give you a chance to give your 2 cents worth in on what the game is, how the game is going for the University of Georgia. Until then, go Dogs.